"Get out of here! I didn't invite you," my son shouted when I tried to sit down at the dinner table I had been preparing since 5 a.m. for his birthday. But that was my house. I stood up slowly, walked toward the door, and did something that left every guest speechless. Do you know that feeling when the ground seems to vanish beneath your feet? When words reach your ears but take a few seconds to reach your brain because they're so absurd you can't quite believe them? That's exactly how I felt that Saturday night. I stood there, apron still tied around my waist, the same floral apron I'd worn for 15 years, stained with tomato sauce and grease from countless family dinners. My hands trembled as I held a white porcelain plate, the wedding gift I had kept for 42 years. The smell of roasted meat still lingered in the air, gold balloons floated near the ceiling, and 30 people stared at me with a mix of pity and embarrassment. And my son, my only son, Michael, the boy I once cradled in my arms, stayed up all night with when he had a fever. The one I watched grow into an engineer stood there, face flushed red, pointing at me as if I were a stranger in my own home. "Don't you get it, Mom? That seat's already taken." His voice cut through the heavy silence. Next to him stood his wife, Claire, smiling faintly, that thin, practiced smile I knew too well. The smile of someone who knows she's winning a battle you didn't even realize you were fighting. I looked at the dining table, the oak table I'd bought on an installment plan when Michael was 8. The tablecloth was mine. The dishes were mine. My mother's silver cutlery gleamed under the chandelier light, also mine. And yet, I had no place there. My chest tightened, not just from humiliation, but from a deeper kind of loss. Every early morning I'd spent sewing, every dollar I'd saved, every dream I'd put aside to help build his, all of it suddenly meant nothing. Worse than nothing, it was now a burden. But strangely, in that moment, when everyone expected me to cry and leave quietly, something inside me awakened. I heard a voice, the voice of the 30-year-old woman I once was. Strong and fearless, she said, "Lift your head. Show them who really owns this place." I took a deep breath, set the plate down on the side table, untied my apron, folded it neatly as always, and walked calmly toward the door. I could feel the weight of 67 years on my shoulders, but also something new, clarity. I stopped, turned around, and looked at every face in that room. Michael's friends, his co-workers, Claire's relatives, and said 6 simple words that froze the room. "Everyone, please enjoy the party." Then I left. No one there, not my son, not the woman he called his wife, knew that I wasn't running away. I was preparing for a battle. And if you think you've heard stories of revenge before, believe me, you haven't. I heard this one, because what happened after that door closed would make sure none of them ever forgot. I walked up the staircase slowly, my hand brushing the wooden banister I'd varnished 3 times over the years. Each familiar creak of the steps carried me farther from the laughter and the wine I had bought, the food I had cooked. Below, I heard Claire's voice trying to lift the mood again. "Come on, everyone, raise your glasses. Michael, honey, come here." Her voice was syrupy, childish, the same tone she used whenever she wanted to play innocent. I entered my bedroom, the only room in that house still truly mine, and locked the door. My knees gave out, and I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I had slept beside my husband, Robert, for 30 years, and alone for the last 12. Tears came silent, burning tears that slid down the collar of the blue blouse I had chosen that morning, thinking I should look nice for my son's birthday. How foolish I had been. I looked into the mirror. Staring back at me was a woman with silver hair tied low, calloused hands from a lifetime of work, and deep lines carved around her eyes. a woman who had become invisible in her own home. My gaze fell on the old wooden dresser, my grandmother's, the one with a bottom drawer I rarely opened. I wiped my face, walked over, and pulled it open. Inside was a faded blue plastic folder. I took it out, feeling the weight of the papers within. Sitting on the floor, leaning against the bed, I opened it. House deed, transfer slips, old yellowed receipts. Everything was there. Every dollar I had put into this house, $380,000, all from Robert's accident, settlement, and over 20 years of savings from my sewing work. And on the final page of the ownership document was Michael's name, co-owner of 50%. I had added it out of love, believing I was securing my son's future. Like any mother, I thought one day he'd take care of me the way I had taken care of him. I ran my fingers over my signature from years ago, back when I still believed in happy endings. Downstairs, laughter and music filled the air again. Someone dropped a glass. People cheered. Claire's laughter rang out. Sitting alone in my room, surrounded by papers and memories, I realized everything had changed, not in anger, but in cold clarity. I had endured the last 3 years swallowing my pride, staying quiet, letting that woman take over my home, letting my son drift away until he saw me as a burden. But every endurance has its limit. I listened to footsteps in the hallway. Someone stopped at my door. "Mom." Michael's voice was small, uncertain. "Are you okay? Can you open the door?" I slid the folder back into the drawer, fixed my blouse, wiped my face dry, and opened the door. He stood there in the blue shirt I'd ironed last week, his eyes avoiding mine. "Do you want to come down for cake? It's time to blow out the candles." His tone was strained, like he was doing me a favor. I looked him straight in the eye, the same eyes that used to shine with admiration when he was little. "No, thank you. I already ate." I lied. My stomach had been empty all day. "Mom, don't be upset. Claire already apologized." "Did she?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He said nothing. "She was just stressed. She wanted everything to be perfect. And I ruined that perfection, didn't I?" He stayed silent. I placed my hand on the door handle. "Go back to your party, Michael. I'm fine." I closed the door gently, holding myself steady. I listened to his footsteps retreat, first slow, then faster, as if relieved. I sat down again, looking at the drawer where the folder lay hidden, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel sad or resigned. I felt power, the kind of power that comes from knowing the truth, from being ready to fight. Downstairs, the party noises went on, but in my mind, a plan had already begun to form. In the hours and days that followed, as I began gathering the documents I had so carefully kept, memories rose like a storm. The invasion hadn't happened overnight. It had crept in slowly, little by little, like water wearing down stone, until one day you realize it's too late. It started 3 years ago, right after the wedding. Claire arrived with 2 suitcases and a sweet smile. "Mom, I promise I'll take good care of Michael." I believed her. I hugged her, kissed her cheek, and said, "This house is your home too." I should have bitten my tongue that very moment. At first, she acted perfectly polite, tidying rooms, helping me cook, complimenting everything I made. "Mrs. Barbara, your stew is the best I've ever had." I felt proud, thinking I'd gained a wonderful daughter-in-law. Then came the suggestions. "Mom, don't you think these lace curtains look a little old-fashioned? We should switch to blinds. They look cleaner." Clean. That was her favorite word. Everything had to be clean. I gave in, and spent more than $2,000 replacing the white curtains, turning my cozy living room into something that looked like a clinic. But she was pleased, and I wanted her to be pleased. Then came the paintings. I had 3: a landscape I'd bought at a craft fair, a framed photo of Robert, and an embroidery piece my mother had made. One day, I came home to find the walls bare. "Claire, have you seen the paintings that were here?" She looked up from her phone and said casually, "I put them away, they look too cluttered. I bought a few modern abstract ones instead." Now the walls held 3 black frames with random streaks of color that meant nothing. And my paintings? I stored them in the shed behind the garden, don't worry. I ran out there and found them stacked carelessly on old boxes. Robert's photo frame shattered. I clutched it to my chest and cried amid the dust and cobwebs, but I said nothing. I didn't want to cause trouble. Claire replaced my grandmother's old Persian rug with cheap gray carpets that shed fibers everywhere. "It's Scandinavian style, Mom, very trendy." She even threw away my hand-painted porcelain tea set, a wedding gift from my godmother, saying, "It just takes up space and no one uses it." But what broke me most was the bronze wall clock. Robert had bought it from an antique store for our 15th anniversary. On the back, he had engraved, "To Barbara, the woman who makes every second worthwhile. Robert." That clock had witnessed every milestone in my life. It struck 12 when Michael was born, 6 p.m. when I got the news of Robert's accident, and 10 p.m. the night Michael graduated. One afternoon, I came home from the market and saw the wall empty. "Michael, where's your father's clock?" He came down the stairs, towel in hand, his tone indifferent. Claire said, "It was too old." "We threw it out," I screamed, the first time I truly lost control. And it was also the first time I saw my son's expression change. The respect in his eyes was gone, replaced by irritation. "God, Mom, it's just a clock. We'll buy a new one." "It was your father's," I cried. "He's been gone for 12 years, Mom." "You need to move on." Move on as if memories were burdens, as if love was disposable. I ran to the backyard, rummaged through the trash, but the garbage truck had already come. I went to the bathroom, turned the faucet on full blast, and cried where no one could hear me. Claire never apologized, not even pretended to. Instead, she kept going. She convinced Michael to turn my sewing room, the space where I had worked for 30 years, into his office. "Mom doesn't sew that much anymore, right? Michael needs his own space." It was true, my hands hurt from arthritis, and my eyes weren't as sharp, but that room was mine. My refuge, the last piece of me. Still, I yielded. They took away my old Singer machine, my color-sorted spools of thread, and replaced them with a sleek white desk, a computer, a corkboard, and a swivel chair. The walls were painted pale gray. When I walked in, I didn't recognize it anymore. "Looks so much better, doesn't it, Mom?" Claire smiled. Yes, it was modern, tidy, but empty, soulless. And the worst part was yet to come. She didn't just want to change the house, she wanted to erase me from it. She began to distance herself, stopped calling me Mom, and switched to Mrs. Barbara. In front of guests, she introduced me merely as Michael's mother, never mentioning I owned the house. She changed the groceries, replaced my usual coffee with the expensive brand she liked, threw out my old pressure cooker for an electric one. "Safer for someone your age," she said, emphasizing the words "your age." Then she started bossing around Regina, the housekeeper I paid $400 a month from my pension. "Regina, no need to ask Mrs. Barbara. I've already made a to-do list." Poor Regina didn't know whom to obey. She'd just glance at me helplessly. Even my seat at the table was taken. I used to sit at the head where the homeowner sits, but Claire gradually moved me aside. Until one day she said, "Mom, can you switch seats? It'll be easier to serve food." And once again, I yielded. The invasion had happened slowly, until one day I realized there was no space left for me. My house had been taken over, my son manipulated, and I, the one who had built it all, had become a stranger in my own life. As I gathered the documents, receipts, and proof of every dollar I had spent, something began to grow inside me. Not hatred, determination. After 67 years of life, I had learned one thing. They could take my paintings, the clock, my sewing room, even my seat at the table, and treat me like a nuisance, but they couldn't take what was rightfully mine. And this house, it was mine. I would prove it. I stayed in my room all Sunday. I heard the guests leave, the gate close, Regina cleaning up, dishes clattering, Claire complaining about her feet. No one knocked to ask how I was. Monday morning was gray. Michael left early for work without a word. Claire slept in. I put on simple clothes and left the house. I took the bus downtown, walked 3 blocks to the property office to pay the overdue house taxes 2 months late because Claire had forgotten, even though I'd already given her the money. The young clerk, with glasses and neatly tied hair, looked up. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "I want to pay my property taxes. I'm behind 2 months." She typed my information, frowned, and asked, "You're Barbara Miller, the homeowner, right?" She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "Do you have your documents with you?" I handed her my ID. And a copy of the property deed, something I always carried, an old habit that ended up saving me that day. She checked, typed a few lines, and then said something that made my blood run cold. "Ma'am, are you aware your house is currently in the process of being transferred?" I froze. "What?" "Someone submitted documents to remove your name from the deed and transfer full ownership to Michael Miller and Claire Miller." I gripped the counter to keep from collapsing. "Since when?" 2 months ago, January 27th. While I had been cooking, cleaning, paying bills, and enduring their contempt, they'd been quietly trying to take everything. "Is the transfer already processed?" "Not yet, it's missing your signature. Without it, it can't be finalized." I exhaled in relief. "Can I get a copy of the file?" "Sure. The fee is $15. Print all of it for me." I waited 10 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. When she handed me the thick stack of papers, I saw the signatures, the stamps, the declarations all forged. Michael and Claire had claimed I gave verbal consent for the transfer. Both of them had signed, lying in writing, my son and that woman. I paid the overdue taxes with my own card, plus a $270 late fee. As I stepped out of the registrar's office, my legs shook, my head spun. I needed air. I sat on a wooden bench in the small park across from an old church. Pigeons pecked at crumbs. A street vendor offered me a bottle of cold water. The world around me carried on as if nothing had happened, while mine was falling apart. I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Harris. "Sir, I need to see you right now." "What happened, Mrs. Barbara?" "I just found out they tried to remove my name from the house deed." There was silence for a few seconds. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Wait for me at the office." I arrived first. I climbed all 3 flights of stairs, because I couldn't bear to sit still in the elevator. When he got there, I was already in the waiting room, gripping the file so tightly the pages were wrinkled. He read each page, his expression growing more serious with every line. When he finished, he removed his glasses, rubbed his forehead, and said, "Mrs. Barbara, this is property fraud. They forged your consent signature. If this had gone through, you'd already be out of your home. But they failed. For now. But they'll try again." He opened a drawer and pulled out a small voice recorder. "Do you have a smartphone?" "Yes. From now on, record every suspicious conversation, any mention of money, the house, or paperwork. We'll need evidence." I got home around 3 p.m. Claire was on the couch watching TV, eating popcorn, painting her nails bright red. She didn't even glance at me. "Hi, Mom. Did you have lunch?" "I did," I lied. My stomach twisted with anger and disgust. I went upstairs, lay still, and waited. That evening, I heard Michael come home, his bag hitting the couch, the fridge door opening, their voices floating through the living room. I stayed still, holding my phone. Around 9 p.m., I heard them talking in the next room. I pressed my ear to the wall, but it was too thick. I opened my door quietly. The hallway was dark. Their door was slightly ajar. Claire always complained about the heat and kept it open for air. I crept closer, heart pounding, afraid they'd hear me. I opened my recording app, hit the red button, and slipped my phone into the gap of the door. Claire's irritated voice came first. "Michael, I can't stand it anymore. Your mother is a burden." "Don't say that." "Don't say that?" "She's always hovering, meddling, existing here. We need that deed clean without her name." "I know, but the paperwork stalled because it's missing her signature. Then make her sign. Tell her it's for taxes or estate planning. I don't care. Just make something up." My hands trembled, but I kept recording. "And why do we even need the house so badly?" Michael's voice sounded tired. Claire snapped, "Because we owe $87,000 in credit card debt, Michael, plus the SUV payment over $1,200 a month, and still behind. The bank's about to repossess it. If we get the deed, we can use it as collateral, borrow $420,000, pay everything off, and finally breathe. But that's my mother's house. It was. Now it's ours. She can't hold back our future." Silence. I stopped breathing. Hot tears ran down my face. "What if she finds out?" Claire let out a cold laugh. "Finds out what?" "That old lady never leaves the house. She doesn't understand the law and doesn't have a lawyer. She'll sign whatever you give her. Lying used to be your specialty, remember?" "I feel guilty, Claire." "Guilty? Do you want guilt? Or do you want a life? You want to keep drowning in debt, living in rentals? Choose your mother or our future." Silence again. Then Michael's voice, low and defeated. "Fine. I'll talk to her tomorrow." My world collapsed all over again, but not from shock, but from confirmation of my worst fear. I quietly went back to my room, locked the door, sat on the bed, and listened to the recording 3 times, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. $87,000 in credit card debt, over $1,200 in monthly car payments, and a planned $420,000 loan using my house as collateral. And my son, the boy I raised alone, fed, educated, gave a home, had made his choice. I sent the recording to Mr. Harris with a short message. "I have proof. Start immediately." "I can't wait any longer," he replied within 2 minutes. "Got it. Meet me at 8 a.m. tomorrow. It's time to strike back." I lay there staring at the ceiling. Downstairs, Michael and Claire were laughing, watching TV, acting as if they hadn't just plotted to destroy me. But now, the war had entered a new phase, and I had a weapon. The next morning, I woke with a strange clarity. The anger was gone. Anger burns, it blinds you. What I felt now was cold precision, calm. I put on gray pants, a white blouse, a black blazer, closed-toe shoes, and a touch of lipstick. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the humiliated woman from that dinner. I saw someone ready to reclaim everything. I went downstairs at 7 a.m. Michael had already left, avoiding the conversation Claire had made him promise to have. She was still asleep. I left a note on the fridge. Out on errands. Back this afternoon. Then I took the bus downtown, arriving 5 minutes early at Mr. Harris's office. He was already there, with hot coffee and a thick file in front of him. Mrs. Barbara. He shook my hand firmly. I listened to the recording 5 times. Now we have them. He opened the file. But you need to understand this step can't be undone. Once we begin, it will hurt them, and it will hurt you too. I've heard enough, Mr. Harris. It's time to act. He smiled faintly, sad but proud. Then let's begin. We talked for 2 hours. Mr. Harris laid out the plan with the precision of an architect. He had even uncovered things I didn't know. First, he said, the house was purchased entirely with your money, $380,000. Michael's name was added as a gift. That gives you the right to revoke it. Really? Absolutely. The law allows revocation of a gift in 3 cases: serious ingratitude, financial hardship of the giver, or unfulfilled obligations tied to the gift. Yours qualifies as serious ingratitude. He pointed to the recorder. Conspiracy to defraud, public humiliation, emotional neglect. More than enough. My throat tightened. Emotional neglect, yes. My son had abandoned me while still living under my roof. Second, he continued, I looked into their debts. $87,000 in credit cards, plus an SUV financed over 84 months at a little over $1,200 a month, 3 payments behind. The bank will repossess the car within 60 days. They have no money, Mrs. Barbara. Even the groceries, utilities, internet, and housekeeper all paid by you. I thought of all the times Claire came home with luxury shopping bags, all the times I asked her to pitch in and heard, money's tight this month. I'd been supporting both of them on my $800 pension, while they flaunted fake wealth with travel photos, restaurant dinners, and designer clothes, all smoke and credit. There's more, Mr. Harris said, pulling another document, a copy of a bank file. They were planning to mortgage the house for $420,000 at an extremely high interest rate that would push the total cost well over 50% a year. In 2 years, the debt would double. If they defaulted, the bank would seize the property. You'd end up on the street while they vanished. A chill ran down my spine. What do I need to do? 3 steps. He raised 3 fingers. First, file to revoke the gift, remove Michael's name, and restore full ownership to you. Second, file a civil suit for emotional damages due to fraud, humiliation, and neglect. Third, demand financial restitution, college tuition of $95,000, $12,000 for the wedding dress, $28,000 for the wedding reception, $35,000 for the car down payment, plus home renovations and furnishings totaling $213,000. All of it can be claimed as repayment for their ingratitude. $213,000, nearly everything I had saved in my lifetime. How long will it take? Roughly 3 months for the revocation case. The damages suit could take up to 8 months, but the key is to start now. And there's one thing we can do immediately: file an emergency injunction. What kind of injunction? To freeze the property. They won't be able to sell, rent, or mortgage the house. Meanwhile, you can request their removal. The court allows a 30-day deadline. If they don't move out, they can be legally evicted. The thought of having my son thrown out of the house I built was painful, but losing everything would hurt even more. How much will this cost? About $25,000 in legal fees. You can pay in installments. $25,000, nearly my entire emergency fund. But what emergency could be greater than this? I'll do it, I said firmly. Mr. Harris extended his hand. I took it. You're a brave woman, Mrs. Barbara. No, sir. I'm just a woman who's finally too tired of being trampled. I left his office with a folder full of signatures, a detailed plan, and a new feeling in my chest, not relief, but power. The power of taking back my life. When I got home at noon, Claire was sitting in the living room, giggling at her phone. The moment she saw me, she straightened up, pretending to be serious. Hi, Mom. Were you at a doctor's appointment? No, I was out taking care of some things. I didn't lie, but I didn't reveal anything either. Oh, by the way, she said, Michael said he wants to talk to you tonight about some house papers. My stomach tightened. What papers? Oh, just tax stuff, routine paperwork. She smiled, a smile full of deceit. All right, tonight then. I went upstairs, locked my door, and texted Mr. Harris. They're planning to trick me into signing papers tonight. What should I do? He replied immediately. Sign nothing. Say you need to read everything carefully first. Bring it to your lawyer and record everything. I spent the entire afternoon rehearsing what to say, how to react, where to hide my phone. I knew that after tonight everything would change. When night came, I heard Michael return. His voice greeting Claire. A soft kiss, murmurs I couldn't make out. My heart pounded painfully. Then came the knock. Mom, can we talk? I took a deep breath, started recording, slipped the phone into my pocket, and opened the door. Michael stood there, serious, tie loosened, eyes avoiding mine. Claire stood behind him, arms crossed, that triumphant smile on her lips. All right, I said. Come in. We sat in my room. Michael perched on the edge of the bed, Claire leaned against the doorframe, and I stood by the dresser. Mom, we need to handle some paperwork about the house. What kind of paperwork? He pulled an envelope from his jacket and took out a few pages. It's just to simplify things later. If the house is in my name, then when you're gone someday, it'll be easier to manage everything. The words shattered something inside me. I took the papers and read line by line, just as Mr. Harris had predicted. It was a full transfer of ownership. My name erased, theirs added. And once I sign this, I asked quietly, where will I live? Michael looked confused. What do you mean? You'll still live here, of course, for as long as you want. And if you decide to sell the house? Claire cut in smoothly. Oh, don't worry, Mom. Who would ever sell the house? I folded the papers, slipped them back into the envelope, and handed it to my son. I won't sign. Michael's face changed. Mom, I won't sign anything until my lawyer reviews it. Claire stepped forward. What lawyer? I looked her straight in the eyes and said calmly, the lawyer handling the revocation of the house gift, the one I once co-owned with Michael. Her smile vanished. What? Michael shot up. Revoke the gift? What do you mean? You'll find out soon enough. I opened the door and gestured for them to leave. Claire glared at me, fury in her eyes. Michael stood frozen, mouth open, speechless. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm protecting myself, something I should have done a long time ago." Then I closed the door. Outside, I heard Claire scream, "I knew it! That old woman just loves causing trouble." But it didn't matter anymore. The game had changed, and this time, I held the winning hand. The next 15 days were some of the hardest of my life. Michael and Claire barely spoke to me. When we crossed paths in the hallway, they avoided eye contact. Meals were eaten in silence, or they took their food upstairs, but I didn't sit idle. While they ignored me, I quietly built the case, step by step. Mr. Harris worked fast. We filed the revocation petition on Thursday. By early the following week, the court had issued a temporary order. The house was completely frozen. They couldn't sell, rent, or mortgage it. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, the bomb exploded. Michael came home, pale-faced, holding a stack of mail from the bank. Claire read over his shoulder, then screamed, "Asset freeze? What the hell is this?" I heard everything from upstairs. I came down slowly, gripping the railing, my phone recording in my pocket. Both of them stood in the living room, the letter spread open on the coffee table. When they saw me, Michael jumped up. "Mom, what did you do?" "I did what had to be done." "You froze the house. The bank rejected the loan. We've lost everything. You've ruined us." Claire pointed at me, her voice sharp and shrill. "This is all your fault, you selfish old woman. You mean the plan to simplify things. You were trying to steal my house." "Steal? That's ridiculous. We just wanted to make things easier." "Easier? To borrow $420,000 against my house?" I threw the truth right in their faces. The air went still. Michael looked at Claire. She lowered her head. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. "Because I found out. About the $87,000 debt, the car payments you can't make, and the transfer you filed 2 months ago." I took a step closer with each word, feeling my strength return. Claire regained her voice, trembling with rage. "You don't understand, do you? We have responsibilities. Do you think it's easy to keep this household running? I pay for everything. The electricity, the water, the internet, the housekeeper, everything. Because you never let us forget it's your house," she screamed. "Everything is yours, your house, your food, your air. Yes, mine. Because I worked for it. Every drop of sweat, every tear." Michael stepped in, lowering his tone. "Mom, please. Calm down. We can talk about this, solve it like a family." "Family?" I stared at him. "Families don't steal from each other. Families don't kick their mother away from the table. Families don't make their mother hire a lawyer just to feel safe." "But I had to." He swallowed hard. "You actually hired a lawyer?" "Yes. And he advised me to do what I should have done years ago." I pulled a brown envelope from my bag and set it next to the bank letter. "What's that?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. "A legal notice. You have 30 days to move out of this house." The room froze. Michael opened the envelope, read it, then read it again. "You're evicting us? I'm asking you to leave because this house belongs to me, and I have the right to decide who lives here." "I'm your son," he shouted, tears in his eyes. "How can you do this to me? How could you do this to me? How could you let her humiliate me in my own home? How could you scream at me in front of 30 people? How, Michael?" He stayed silent, staring at me like I was a stranger. Claire panicked. "We have nowhere else to go. You want us on the street? You both have jobs, a luxury car, rent an apartment. Live like normal people." "You're insane," she screamed, grabbing her purse and car keys. "I'm not staying here another minute!" She slammed the door so hard the picture frame on the wall shook. Only Michael and I remained. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "Mom, I know I messed up. Claire went too far. I did too, but you can't do this. You can't abandon me." I sat across from him, letting silence speak. "Michael, you abandoned me first when you signed those papers, when you yelled at me, when you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as an obstacle. I never stopped loving you. Love isn't words, son. It's action. And your actions have hurt me more than any wound ever could." He lowered his head. "If I leave Claire, will you stop all this?" I looked at the man in front. Of me, not the boy I once held, but the adult who had chosen betrayal. "No, Michael. This isn't about her. It's about you. You tried to take my home. You humiliated me. You broke my trust. Leaving her won't erase that." He sighed, his tone colder. "So, you're choosing the house?" "No. I'm choosing my dignity. You chose the house when you tried to steal it from me." I stood up, grabbed my purse. 30 days, Michael. That's what the court allows. After that, if you're still here, they'll make you leave and that will be worse. I climbed the stairs, feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world. But when I closed my bedroom door and looked into the mirror, I didn't see a broken woman anymore. I saw someone strong, someone who had fought and refused to surrender. Downstairs, I heard Michael crying. A part of me wanted to go down, to hold him, to forgive him because a mother's pain never truly ends. But the stronger part of me, the one that had kept me alive and working for 67 years, whispered, "Enough. You've given enough." Those 30 days crawled by like 30 years. Michael and Claire drifted through the house like angry ghosts. She didn't speak to me at all. He sometimes tried to start a conversation, but I kept my distance. I had to. If I softened, they'd take advantage again. On the 19th day, they hired their own lawyer. I received a formal objection to the eviction, claiming Michael was co-owner. Mr. Harris immediately responded with the revocation petition and all the supporting evidence. 2 days later, their lawyer withdrew from the case. On the 20th day, Claire knocked on my door at midnight, tears streaming down her face. "I'm pregnant," she sobbed. But she never mentioned the pregnancy again, and there was no proof. When I calmly asked for proof, she exploded, shouting that I was heartless, then ran back to her room. By the 25th day, they started packing. Cardboard boxes filled the hallway. I overheard their arguments about what to take, what to leave, where to go. That's when my phone rang, and everything changed. "Mrs. Barbara," Mr. Harris said, "I need you at my office right away. It's urgent." "What happened?" "I found something you need to see for yourself." I arrived an hour later. He looked tense. On his desk lay an open file and an iPad. "Please, sit down." I did, my heart pounding. I continued investigating Michael and Claire's finances and found this. He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of Claire at a fancy restaurant, her arm around a man definitely not my son. "Who is that?" "Leonard Fisher, businessman. Owns 3 construction supply stores. Married, with 2 kids." Mr. Harris swiped through more photos, Claire and Leonard entering a hotel, sitting in a luxury car that wasn't theirs. They've been seeing each other for at least 8 months. My stomach twisted. Does my son know? I don't think so. She's careful, but there's more. He handed me another document. "Do you remember the property transfer attempt?" That idea came from Leonard. He's done this before, helped other women mortgage houses for loans 3 times. He could be using her for money, or they could both be using Michael. But one thing's certain, it didn't start with your son. I stared at the photos. Claire smiling, glowing, wrapped around another man, while Michael worked himself sick to pay her debts. Michael has to know. Are you sure? It'll destroy him. I thought of the humiliation, of his yelling, of the betrayal. He deserves the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Mr. Harris printed everything: photos, credit card statements, hotel and restaurant receipts during Michael's work hours, even text messages obtained by court order. We assembled it all into one file. When will you tell him? He asked. I glanced at the calendar. 5 days left until their deadline. He'll know before he goes. I got home around noon. Their cars were still in the garage. It was Saturday. Both were home. I went upstairs, locked my door, and waited. By late afternoon, I heard movement in the kitchen. I went down. Michael was making a sandwich. When he saw me, he froze. Hi, Mom. Hi, son. Where's Claire? In the bedroom, scrolling on her phone. His voice sounded weary, defeated. I need to talk to you privately. He hesitated. About what? The truth. We sat in the living room. I took the couch. He sat across from me. The folder lay on the table between us. Before you leave this house, I need you to see this. Not to hurt you, but because you deserve to know. Know what? I opened the folder and laid out the photos. His face changed: shock, disbelief, then heartbreak. No way. These must be fake, photoshopped or something. No. They have dates, times, and locations. I handed him more documents. Look here: restaurant downtown, February 15th, 4 p.m. She told you she was at the dentist, remember? His hands trembled. Hotel Plaza, March 8th, 2 p.m. She said she was having lunch with me. Stop, Mom, I get it. Get what? That she betrayed you? That the plan to steal the house wasn't yours, but hers and his? I placed the final paper on the table. Leonard Fisher has been sued 3 times for fraud, convincing married women to mortgage property, taking the money, and disappearing. Michael went pale, sweat forming on his forehead, his hands gripping his knees. How long? At least 8 months. He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down. I'm such an idiot. No, you were deceived. And because of her, you almost lost me. He truly looked at me, not with contempt, but with the eyes of a son seeing his mother again. I ruined everything, didn't I? Yes, but at least now, you know the truth. Footsteps echoed down the stairs. Claire appeared, still in her pajamas, yawning. When she saw the papers on the table, her face turned ghostly white. What's this? Michael stood, holding up one of the photos. Explain. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Honey, I can explain. Explain then, he shouted so loudly I flinched. He's just a friend. We were talking about business. Business? You're unemployed. What business could you possibly have with a married man? He threw the rest of the photos at her. 8 months you lied to me, and I had no idea. Claire stumbled, trying to gather the papers. It's not what you think. Then explain the hotels, the restaurants, the fact that he's been paying your debts while I drown in mine. He didn't pay anything. Your mother made all this up. Michael let out a bitter laugh. Made it up? There are photos, receipts, credit statements. Did she fake those too? She just wants to destroy us. I stood, stepped closer, and said softly, No, Claire, you destroyed yourself. I only revealed the truth. She glared at me. You're just a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing her son happy. Happy? Michael shouted again. Happy drowning in debt? Happy being betrayed? Happy nearly losing my mother because of you? It's not my fault your mother is greedy and can't let go of this house. This house belongs to her, it always has. And you know that. Claire's breathing quickened, her eyes blazing. You know what? I'm done. I'm done pretending I love you, pretending this marriage was worth anything. I married you for the house, for stability. I thought pushing your mother out would be easy, but she's too stubborn. Michael stepped back as if she'd slapped him. Get out. His voice was low and cold. Or what? Get out before I do something I'll regret. She grabbed her purse and keys. Fine. I'll leave and I'm never coming back. You two can rot here together, in this miserable little life. I deserve better. The door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled. Outside, the car engine roared. The gate opened, and then silence. Michael collapsed onto the couch, his head buried in his hands, sobbing. I stood there watching, my heart aching. Part of me wanted to hold him, while another part wanted to say, I warned you. But instead, I sat beside him, quietly placed my hand on his back, and rubbed gently the same way I used to when he was little and woke up from nightmares. I'm sorry, Mom, he choked out between tears. I'm so sorry. I know, I whispered. I almost lost you. Almost. He looked up, his face red and swollen. What do I do now to make it right? I took a deep breath. I don't know if it can be made right. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired, but we can rebuild something different. Will, you forgive me? One day, if you truly change. He nodded, and in that moment, in the silence of the house, I felt something shift. Not joy, not triumph, but justice. Justice for the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal. The truth had finally come to light, and though it hurt, it set me free. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my bedroom window. It was a September morning, and I woke up without that heavy feeling in my chest. The house was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet, not the suffocating kind. I went down to the kitchen and brewed coffee in the old blue enamel pot my mother had given me 40 years ago, the one Claire once wanted to throw away for being too old-fashioned. Now it sat proudly on the stove again. I looked around. Everything felt familiar, yet alive. The white lace curtains hung back in place. The antique brass clock had been replaced and engraved on the back. Its chime echoed softly through the room. The pictures were back on the ready. Wall Robert's portrait, autumn landscapes, and the embroidered rosary my mother had made. I added a new one, a photo of the three of us at the park, Michael, just 5 years old, laughing in his father's arms. My sewing room was set up again. The old Singer machine, freshly oiled, ran smoothly. Threads were neatly arranged by color. I had clients again, 3 evening gowns, 2 alteration orders, and 1 bridesmaid dress. I earned between $2,000 and $3,000 a month. Not a fortune, but it was honest work, and it was mine. I poured coffee into a hand-painted porcelain cup, the same type Claire once smashed, which I later found at an antique shop and bought back for twice the price. Every penny was worth it. I sat on the back porch, looking at my little garden. Red, white, and yellow roses bloomed. I had added mint, rosemary, and basil. Their scent filled the air whenever the wind blew. Then I heard the gate open and familiar footsteps along the side path. Michael appeared, holding 2 grocery bags. "Good morning, Mom," I smiled. "Good morning, son." He set the bags on the porch table. "I got everything on the list and your favorite coffee, the most expensive one, because you deserve it." I smiled again, small but sincere. "Thank you." He sat beside me. We were silent for a while, just watching the garden and listening to the birds. That's how we began to heal, bit by bit, slowly, steadily. Michael kept showing up, helping around the house, bringing groceries, sitting with me over coffee, rebuilding my trust with actions instead of excuses. Now, sitting beside me, wearing simple clothes, holding his coffee, looking leaner and calmer, I saw a new man. But in his brown eyes, I also saw a flicker of the boy he used to be. "How's work?" I asked. "I just got promoted. I'll be overseeing a construction project on the west side of Dallas. Got an $800 raise." "That's wonderful, son." He hesitated. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you forgiven me?" I looked at him. It was a question worth thinking about. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Michael. I haven't forgotten the shouting, the humiliation, or that you once tried to take my home. But I understand you were manipulated, you were wrong, and I can see you're trying to make things right. So, is there hope? Yes, always. But trust has to be rebuilt, and you're doing that. He nodded, his eyes glistening. I stood up. "Come, I want to show you something." We went into my sewing room. On the table lay a deep blue fabric. I was cutting a suit for a client's daughter's wedding. Michael brushed his hand over it. "It's beautiful, Mom." I had to relearn everything. My eyes aren't what they used to be, so I bought new glasses. My hands ache, but I stretch every day. I'm happy. He smiled. "You know, Mom, I'm proud of you." I was surprised. "Really?" "Really. I'm proud that you're strong, that you got back up, that you didn't give up. I want to be like you." "You will, son. Just choose the right path next time." He smiled, a sad smile, but hopeful. We spent the morning together. He fixed the leaky faucet, replaced the burnt-out bulbs, cleaned the gutters, the kind of chores a son should have done long ago. At noon, I cooked spaghetti with tomato sauce and meatballs, his childhood favorite. We ate in the kitchen, not the dining room full of old memories. That's where we started over. By afternoon, he stood to leave. "I'll come back next week." "I know." He hugged me tight. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, son." A mother's love never disappears. It can hurt, it can break, but it never dies. When he left, I returned to the porch. The sunset painted the sky in pink and orange. The breeze rustled the roses. I took out my phone and looked at a photo from last week, me sitting by my sewing machine, holding up a green dress I'd just finished. The client had said, "Mrs. Barbara, you have to capture this moment." I looked at the woman in that picture, silver hair falling over her shoulders, wrinkles around her eyes, calloused hands, but a bright, genuine smile. I thought of everything I'd been through: humiliation, betrayal, pain, and then triumph. I reclaimed my home, my dignity, my life. I thought of my husband, Robert. If he were here, he'd say, "Barbara, I always knew you were stronger than you thought." I closed my eyes, felt the cool breeze, and whispered, "Robert, I did it." I fell, but I stood back up. I was trampled on, but I fought back. And now, finally, I'm at peace. The sun set completely. I turned on the porch light and opened my notebook. I began writing down my memories, my life stories. Maybe someday they'll help someone going through the same pain. I wrote the last line. I stood up, walked out the door, and did the one thing that surprised everyone. I chose myself. And it was the best decision of my life. I closed the notebook, smiled, and silently thanked life for strength, for courage, for survival, and for freedom. If someone has ever hurt you under your own roof, remember this. You don't have to keep sacrificing just to be loved. You deserve respect whether you're a mother, a daughter, or a partner. I chose myself, and through that, I found peace again. And you? Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments because your words might be the strength someone else needs. If you want to keep walking this journey with me to hear more stories about family, love, and resilience, stay with me so we don't lose each other along the way. Because in the end, the most precious thing in this life is learning how to love without losing yourself.